Hello, Bobcats. It's Mrs. Woolheit, 5th grade math again. We are still in Chapter 1. We are now in Lesson 6, which is dealing with place value through the thousands. You can also see that we have a standard here, a 5th grade standard. It's something you have to learn in 5th grade to be ready for the math that's coming your way. I'm hoping today you'll be able to read and write decimals in standard, word, and expanded form. So again, I'm hoping you can read decimals correctly, but also write those decimals in digits, standard form, words, or maybe expand that number out so we can see exactly what each of those place values are worth. Why am I learning this? That question, that main idea, what's the purpose? Well, it's a standard in school, but also, again, there's that word equivalent. We have to see that sometimes things look different, but they have the same value. Whether it's written with words or it's expanded out to show the place value, it can be the same amount. When you think about value today, we'll be writing out the place value of certain decimals. You'll be able to understand how much something is worth. If a 5 is written in the ones place, that's 5 $1 bills. If you put that same digit, number 5, and you put it in the tenths, we now have 5 dimes, 50 cents. That same 5, let's say we put it in the hundredths place. We now have 5 pennies or 5 cents, 5 out of 100. So again, we'll be working on value today, and we're also going to learn about seeing things as equivalent, although they are all written differently. As we move into this lesson, I want you to think about, what do you already know about place value? Well, something I already know about place value is the decimal is that barrier, that separator. And so when we have a 5 in the ones place, we're talking about 5 $1 bills. Every time we move to the left, it's getting 10 times bigger. So $55 is different in value. 5 is 10 times smaller than 50. Okay, and the same is true if we move the opposite direction. If we are looking at the same digits, 55, and we're looking at it from the perspective of moving to the right, we're actually getting 1/10 the size, or 10 times smaller. So if we look at $50, which we have here, and we get 10 times smaller, or we divide by 10, then we'll have the value of the next place value, that 5 in the ones place. Every time we move to the right on the place value chart, it's getting 10 times smaller. All right, here are some steps that'll help us today. Step 1, find the value of the digit. Where is that digit on the place value chart? How much is it worth? What's the value? Okay, then we're going to write the number in expanded form, word form, or standard form. Find the value. After we know how much the value is, we can write it in the form they're asking. And of course, last but not least, is your answer reasonable? So figure out, how much is it worth? Write it in the correct form and review your answer, checking to see if it makes sense. Example number 1. 5 tree taps produce enough maple sap to make a gallon, or 379 liters of syrup. Read and write the number of liters in word form. Well, step 1, find the value of that number. Well, 3 is in the ones place. It's on this side of the decimal, and I have 79 hundredths. I now have the value. Step 2, write it in the form they're asking. Well, they're going to be asking us for word form. And I'm going to make sure to write here that it ended in the hundredths place. So I know it's 79 hundredths, or 379 hundredths. If I'm writing it in word form, they've been very kind to me and already put 79. So I can just write that value 3, or the whole number. 3 and is that decimal point. Use and. 3 and 79 hundredths. Remember, you're really just writing the word hundred and adding that THS because it's on the right side of the decimal. 3 and 79 hundredths. Is my answer reasonable? Well, I know my answer is reasonable because the value of the number is in the hundredths place. So I know that 3 and 79 hundredths is written correctly. It's reasonable. All right, example 2. This is focusing primarily on step 1, the value. It says circle the digit in the thousands place, then write the value of the digit. Well, I know there's tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So the number in the thousands place is the last digit, or the 7. So I'm going to circle the 7. The thousands place is 3 places to the right of the decimal. Because it starts with tenths, then it goes hundredths, and finally thousands, I know that thousands is 3 places to the right. The digit has the value of 7 thousandths. Okay, and they're asking you about the digit of just the one you circled. I know that I have the right answer because place value tells me the 7 is actually in that thousandths place. Example 3, write 5 and 614 thousandths in standard and expanded form. Well, step 1, I'm going to find the value. Well, and the value tells me 5 and is the decimal. So I know that 5 goes in the ones place. 5 and 614 thousandths. So I write 614 thousandths, making sure the 4 ends in the thousandths place. I now have the value. I have standard form, which is the digits alone, and so I'm finished with that as well. The last thing to do is to write the value of 5 and 614 thousandths in expanded form. Now remember, expanded form is where you show the value of each digit. And it says 5 is in the blank place. Well, I know 5 is in the ones place. It's on the left of the decimal. The 6 is in the tenths place. I want to make sure I have that THS showing it's less than 1. The 1, or 61, is in the hundredths place. So I can just write the word hundred, and don't forget that THS. Finally, the 4 is in the thousandths place. So I need to make sure again that I have that THS. I've now shown the value in standard form, which is here. I have it in expanded form, showing the value of each of the digits. And I also actually have it in words, in parts. So I know I have the correct answer because all of it is equivalent. All of it is showing the same value. It makes sense. We're moving into guided practice. The guided practice says circle the digit in the tenths place. So we're working on the value here. I know tenths is after the decimal, or smaller than 1. So I need to find the tenths place. Well, it goes tenths, hundredths, thousandths, or tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I can circle the 1 and I can circle the 0 if I was looking for tenths place in both answers. But you can see on problem number 2, they're actually asking us to find the hundredths place this time. Well, I know the hundredths place is here, tenths, hundredths. So I can circle the 3 to complete question 2. I know my answer is reasonable. Well, this tells me to look for tenths place, and tenths place is right after the decimal on the right. This one's asking for hundredths place, and it goes tenths, hundredths on the right. So my answer is reasonable. All right, guided practice number 3. Write each number in standard form. Well, standard form is where you use only digits. We're going to go ahead and get rid of all the words and just write it with digits. It says 5 and. So I know and is the decimal. So I have 5 $1 bills. 5 and 87 in the hundredths place. I know my answer is reasonable because that 7 is in the hundredths place. All right, guided practice number 4. Write each number in standard form. So again, I'm going to make sure that I use this expanded form where they stretch the number out in each place value to show the number in standard form. Well, it says 2 times 10 is 20, so that's the tens place. 6 times 1 is 6, so I have 26. Oh, right away I can see now I have a fraction. That fraction I know means less than 1. So the values that are left, the 3 values, are all less than 1. I can put my barrier, that separator, the decimal, to show we are now getting into something smaller than 1. Well, 9 times 1/10 is 9 in the tenths place. Notice I'm crossing it off as I go. 1 times 1/100th. Well, that's 1 in the hundredths place. Okay, less than 1. And finally, 4 times 1/1000ths. Well, that's 4 thousandths. This is reasonable because 26 and 914 thousandths is the value represented here in expanded form. I have 3 digits, 1, 2, 3, that are less than 1, tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and then I have 26 as a whole number. I have the right answer. All right, guided practice number 5. Write 19 and 4/10 in expanded form. Then write it in word form. Well, I have to show the value first. Step 1, find the value of each digit. Well, the 1 is in the tens place. So I know that I can write 1 times 10 to equal this 1. The next digit is a 9, and I can see the 9 is actually in the ones place. So I have 9 times 1. Ooh, there's the decimal, there's that separator, so I know the next thing I'm going to write is going to be a fraction, showing a value that's less than 1. Well, I'm going to add the digit, which is a 4, and the 4 is being multiplied by tenths, or 1/10. There's the value of the number written in expanded form. It also asked me to write it in word form. When I write it in word form, I need to make sure that I have no digits. You can also remember from a prior lesson that when you write something in word form, you can write it using the periods. 19 is in the ones period, so I wrote it together. 19 and 4/10. I know my answer is reasonable because the answer that's in expanded form as well as the answer that's in all words or word form is the same value as the standard formed question. 19 and 4/10 is written 3 different ways, but they all have the same value. All right, independent practice number 6, name the place of the highlighted digit. Then write the value of the digit. I need to figure out where is that 7. Well, I can see right away the 7 is on the right side of the decimal. It's less than 1. And it's not in the tenths place, it's in the hundredths place. So name the place of the highlighted digit. I can write down, I established the answer is hundredths place. Okay, but the question also says, not only do I need to write the value of the 7 in the place value, but also what is the value of the digit? Well, the value of the digit is 7 over 100, or 7/100. Another way you could write this is you could say 7 times 1/100th. Both would be correct. They both show you the value of 7/100. Okay, and also as a decimal, it could have been written as 7/100. All 3 of those are showing the value of the 7, so I know the answer is reasonable because 7 is in the hundredths place. Number 7, name the place of the highlighted digit, then write the value of the digit. Well, I can see the 5 again is on the right, and it's now in the tenths place. I need to make sure to have that THS showing that it's less than 1. To show the value of the 5, I can write 5 over 10, or 5/10. I could also write it as 5 times 1/10, or 5/10, or as a decimal, 5/10. All are the same value. I know it's reasonable because the 5 is in fact in the tenths place. Number 8, name the place of the highlighted digit, then write the value of the digit. Again, it's on the right, and this time we're in the thousandths place. We're going to make sure to show the thousandths place having that THS, less than 1, thousandths. If I'm showing the value of the 2 is out of 1,000. Or I could say 2 times 1 over 1,000. Both have the same value. Or, of course, 2 thousandths. I know my answer is reasonable because the 2 is in the thousandths place. Moving on to numbers 12 and 13. Write each number in standard form. Well, standard form is when you have only digits. So 13 and 9/10. Well, I know that and is the barrier, the separator, and that 9 is in the tenths place. 50 and 600. Well, 50 and, there's that clue, 6 has to end in the hundredths place. I know that the answers are reasonable because the 9's in the tenths place, the 6 is in the hundredths place, and then my whole numbers are also written correctly. I have the right answer. Again, independent practice, this time number 14, writing it in standard form, only digits. And I'm going to put this expanded, stretched out form all together into the normal number we see. And I can see that 1 times 10 is 10. I can also see that 1 times 1 is 1. So on this side of the decimal, I have 11. And I know that because everything else has a fraction. If it has a fraction, it's less than 1. So I'm going to put that barrier to show less than 1. 9 is in the tenths, 2 is in the hundredths, and 3 is in the thousandths. So the number is 11 and 923 thousandths. I know this is reasonable because I have 2 digits that are whole numbers, 11, and I have 3 digits that are the decimal, tenths, hundredths, thousandths. So I know I have the correct answer. Number 15, write each number in standard form. Well, this time there's only one number that's on the left of the decimal, and that's 70, because 7 times 10 is 70. And then I have to put that barrier, that decimal, to represent less than 1. Because I have 2 different digits that have fractions, I know they're less than 1. 1 times 1/10 is 1/10. There's nothing in the hundredths place, but I have 5 thousandths. I know my answer is reasonable because I have 70 in the whole number, I have a 1 in the tenths, and then I have 5 in the thousandths. So 70 and 105 thousandths is the correct answer. All right, independent practice. Write each number in standard form. Again, only digits. 5 and 3 thousandths. Well, I see that and, so that and tells me that 5 is a whole number. It's on that side of the decimal. And then 3 has to be in the thousandths place. Tenths, hundredths, thousandths. I'm going to put my zeros in to hold those places. It's reasonable because 5 and 3 thousandths looks like this in standard form. Okay, the next one, I can see right away 2 digits are going to be to the left of the decimal. So I could put my decimal as my barrier, and I know that 6 times 10 is 60. And I know that 4 times 1 is 4. So 64. All right, all the other digits are on the right side. They're less than 1. 4 tenths, 4 times 1/10. 1/100th, 1 times 1/100th, 8 times 1,000th is 8 thousandths. So 64 and 418 thousandths is reasonable because it shows the digits in the correct place value. This time they're asking to write it in expanded form. Well, I have no digits that are whole numbers, but I have a 9 that is in the tenths place. It's less than 1. It is on the right side of the decimal. So I'm going to show 9 times 1/10. And we can use those parentheses to separate. I'm going to add that to the next digit. Well, the next digit is a 1. And I know that the 1 is in the hundredths place. So 1 times 100th. And finally, the last digit is the 7. And the 7 is in the thousandths place. So I can go ahead and show the value being 7 thousandths. I have written the number in expanded form. And I know it's reasonable because they're showing the value of the 9 in the tenths, the 1 in the hundredths, and finally the 7 is in the thousandths. Problem solving number 20. A baseball player had a batting average of 334 thousandths for the season. Write this number in expanded form. Okay, well, I need to show the value of the 3 being in the tenths place. It's less than 1. It is on the right side. So I can say 3 times 1/10, or 3/10. Finally, or next, is another 3. And this time that 3 is actually in the hundredths place. So I'm going to show 3 times 1/100th, or 300ths. The 4, I have to have my addition sign, is in the thousandths place. So 4 times 1/1000ths will give me the value of the 4. My answer is reasonable because it shows the value of all digits. 3/10ths, 300ths, and 4 thousandths. 334 thousandths is reasonable in expanded form as written. 21. There were 3 5/5 inches of rain yesterday. Write this number in standard form. Right away I noticed that there's an and, so I concluded the answer to be 3 5/5. Well, not in the tenths, but in the hundredths place. 3 5/5 is reasonable because the 3 is in the ones place and the 5 is in the hundredths place. All right, Bobcats, you have to think before you go into your independent work. What did you learn today? In today's lesson, I'm hoping that you were able to learn how to write decimals in different forms. In summary, today I learned expanded form for decimals. I also learned word form for decimals, and I also learned standard form. All of those we worked on today, so we can continue to work on place value, the value of numbers in front of us. What are they worth? Thank you for your attention.